Support the Bartholomewtown Podcast by subscribing, rating, and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts.
This is the Bartholomewtown Podcast.
Welcome in to another edition of the Bartholomewtown Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Bartholomew. On today's episode, I sit down with Pawtucket, Rhode Island Mayor Don Grebien. The city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island sits in the northern portion of the state, on the Massachusetts border, ostensibly serving as a transition point between the urban Providence metro area and the rural Northwest region. The city has a storied history, often connected to the Blackstone River, which flows mightily through Pawtucket, once powering Samuel Slater and others' industrial revolutions. But in recent months, Pawtucket has seemingly been dealt a series of unfortunate industrial and economic development blows, none more prominent than the Boston Red Sox AAA affiliate, currently and historically known as the Paw Sox, announcing their departure from the city to Worcester, Massachusetts, following a years-long battle between local, state, and team leaders over a new stadium agreement. In the teeth of the Paw Sox fiasco was Pawtucket Mayor Don Grebien, who proved himself to be a champion for his city in his attempts to collectively organize a solution to keep the team in Pawtucket. Although he was ultimately unsuccessful in constructing such a deal, and Pawtucket still faces other concerning economic development issues, during our conversation that you will hear in a matter of moments, Mayor Grebien presented an optimistic, if not excited perspective, sharing ideas that hinted that Pawtucket may well be positioning itself to once again be a city of innovation in areas ranging from housing, healthcare infrastructure, business relations, and community development approaches. It was always clear to me that Don Grebien loved his city, and hearing his backstory only further cemented that notion to me. Stay up to date on all the latest Bartholomewtown Podcast programming and events. Of course, I'll have new episodes of the pod for you each and every Tuesday and Friday, but there's also all kinds of other stuff going on, like our Elmwood Songwriters Club right here at the Loft on February 16th. Follow me on Instagram at Bartholomewtown Podcast. Okay, been looking forward to this one for a minute. From the Loft in Providence, Pawtucket Mayor Don Grebien.
Bill, thank you for having me. Great to be here. And it's nice to get out of Pawtucket once in a while, too, so it's great to be here.
We're kind of in a Pawtucket-esque building right here.
Absolutely. We were just talking about that. It's a beautiful building, you know. This is the type of space that everybody's looking for in today's world. I laugh, we were talking about it, the age difference a little bit, but it's great space, and I appreciate you taking the time and allowing me to be here and have me out there and people to your listeners, so thank you. I tell you honestly, two things, right? And I know is one, my wife keeps me grounded. She keeps me in line, right? And so does the family. But growing up, I just like everybody else, I grew up. My mom and dad were divorced at a young age, so we always fought our way through it. Nothing has been hand delivered. You earn it, and then you respect everybody. And it's hard. We were talking about that with the times. It's hard, but in today's times to respect people. But it's really respectful, and I appreciate those kind words. And it's me. I tell everybody I put my pants on the same way everybody does, right? And so I'm no different than anybody else, and you keep that, that humbleness if you can, and worked in a factory myself, so I get that grassroots stuff and never forget where you came from. So.
Absolutely. So what is your backstory? How did you become mayor of Pawtucket?
So quick story, and you tell me when I'm going too long, is, born and raised in Pawtucket. My mom and dad, like I said, young age, my teenagers, they got divorced, and, they went their separate ways, and, both great parents, both good to us. My dad passed away a year or so ago. Mom's still with us, and grew up in Pawtucket. And, as a young kid, went to the Pawtucket schools, did grammar school at Nathaniel Green, went to Slater Junior High School. And at that high school level, I knew that a career was more of where I wanted to be. And so didn't go to the Shea High School, which I should have gone to. I went to a trade school. I went to Davies Vocational, Voc Tech, wanted to do culinary, and went my path on culinary. But as a young kid, got involved in politics with passing out pamphlets, having the pizza parties, right, getting involved, and realized that I really like people. I try to be as respectful as I can. Don't get me wrong, Bill. I have a day or two, and my wife gets me back in line like we all do. Right. but really respecting people and understanding that building those relationships is important. And I liked the aspect of the campaign. I liked being the door-to-door, passing out. And again, as a young kid. So I knew that was where I think I've learned, that where my experience came from. Like I said, went on to Davies, then went on to CCRI later on, and met my wife, Laureen, and we have two beautiful children. I was saying to you, my daughter Alexa is 19, and our son Connor is 17. Connor's at Tolman, and Alexa's at CCRI now. And, met my wife through catering, hard work. We both worked for a catering company in the food business, and I'm sure you're well aware, we were talking about, you do what you have to get along, and it's tough. And so, kept meeting people, understanding that, it was great to be involved. The catering was a local catering company, did a lot of things around Pawtucket, so I never left. And building those relationships. And, so somewhere in that point, my drive is that I wanted to make the place, the city, I should say, better than what we came from. I wanted to, knowing that I struggled, you want to make it easier for your children and others. And I like the people part. So I moved on and got involved, was appointed, I should say, first on a ward committee in the city of Pawtucket. The 5th Ward, where I was renting my first apartment, and then got involved, ran for re-election. I ran for on the ward committee because I was appointed a vacancy and then elected, and kept involved, enjoyed it, got to know people and build a relationship. And there is an energy that comes from working with people, right? There is that life and that excitement from a campaign as well as doing the job. Ran for council early 90s, and mid-90s, I should say, and lost my first election. It was a special council election involved in the Woodlawn section of Pawtucket. Was very involved in the Little Leagues. We had some of the Cape Verdean groups, the Portuguese groups, community centers, and those type of things, very involved. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the people part. Kept involved, ended up running in early 2000s for council at large, and there was an open seat. Ran. I was elected. Served on the council for 11 years. Was elected 2 years, a 2-year cycle in Pawtucket, and loved, again, serving the people. Had the bug in the stomach, if you will, the aspirations, want to be mayor. And the reason I want to be mayor is I had a young family. I worked for American Insulated Wire at the time. I got out of food service and went into private industry and started out like everybody else in the warehouse, worked my way up, not only through my education, but also through my work ethic at the company, and ended up working for the supply chain manager, being assistant, was warehouse manager, distribution manager, and got to see a lot of the country and involved in American Insulated Wire as a local business. So, doing that and, kept involved. And then the opportunity became that I was served 11 years on the council, had served 2 years as council president, and we were going through a lot. It was the recession at the time, and a lot of the things that were happening in government were not the same things that were happening in private industry. And private industry, myself included, we were taking furlough days, and we were having the cuts, and we were doing everything we can. We were paying more for medical, and then serving on the council, there was a lot of the continuation of great percentages and increases, budget increases, tax increases, and going into what they felt was needed at the time. But I just wasn't comfortable with that, knowing and I always call it the real world versus the government. So I ran against Mayor Doyle, who has since passed away. God rest his soul. Great man. Cared about our community, was involved in our community. But we're always say it, two ends of the pendulum. He was at his back nine, I was at my front nine. And, as a young kid, you think you know everything, right? And, you're doing those things. So ran as an independent. For many different reasons, and but an independent Democrat, and ran against him in a presidential election. Came very close within 1,100 votes of the at the time was probably like 17,000 voters. So it was a good close election, and I stayed involved, and I knew I was going to run again. It was enough to keep me involved and know that I had the opportunity. And 2 years later, Mayor Doyle retired. Then that was 2010. Ran again against the city council president at the time. I had been out for 2 years, not on the city council. Ran, and fortunately, I just was elected to my 5th term this past November. And so enjoying the job. I said, so that's the history of it. Having served on the council, I think it gave me a lot of balance, and having the private industry and background gave me that. There's a lot of empathy, it's value, but it really comes down to dollars and quality of life for people. It's, and I don't mean to make it sound more simple, Bill, but it's simple. It's taking care of people that deserve and work hard, right? And balance, right? Government's always going to grow, and expenses, just like our home budgets do. But how do you balance that, and how do you give back? So that's the history and how I've gotten there. And I thought I was, knew everything when I got there, until I, entered the office and went, the head started spinning, and you really see and have much more respect for those that have been there before you. Sometimes as a legislator, I was a part-time legislator, you think and what you're going through, and they clearly have perspective and ideas and important impacts in the neighborhoods, but you don't know until you sit here how many different facets you're actually dealing with.
Right, especially on the municipal level, where it's so humanized. The distance is not there, if you will, that you get at even the state level. You know what I mean? You're bound and liable to see your constituents on a daily basis, face to face.
And that truly is. And I say, always go back to that. That was what drew me into the government. It was being able to help people and get to have relationships with folks. That's the part I enjoy the most. There are times, when you're out with the family, sometimes it's hard, and somebody has an emergency or they have a situation and they have some FaceTime with the mayor, and and I've always been open arms and respectful. It's my job, right? As the kids that were younger, they didn't understand it. Now that they're sitting at their teenagers, they start to understand there is that, importance, and, to that person and to that individual is insignificant as the issue may be. It's a priority to them, and you need to make sure that you're responding. And what I've always learned and tried to do is be totally honest, right? Try to get through the issue. If there's a way that you can find a common ground to solve the issue, sometimes there's just unreasonable expectations from folks, and you can't deliver, and you need to be honest and, tell them, listen, I can't. And so, you are on the ground, you're in the restaurants every day, or, in the market, or, the neighborhood stores, and people see you, and it is overwhelming at times,
right.
But it is, there's a lot of respect, and you just got to keep your head level, because you can see how others may tend to float out and inflate their personalities, if you will, and lose that you still have to deliver, right? It's about, it's about keeping your streets as safe as you can. We know these are difficult times. We're investing in our police and our fire, and, the plowing, the trash pickup. It's those quality of life issues that do matter. And, you do your best, and you bring the most qualified people in that you can bring, and again, governmental jobs, especially on the local level, it's costly. I mean, there's a cost that comes to that. There's taxpayers' dollar. You want to always remember that. So it's not, it might not be your money, but treat it like it's your money. And it's getting those services done as much as you can. There's as simple as zoning issue. There's a lot of disputes between neighbors, and you try to build those relationships with folks. The trees overhanging my property, and the leaves are dropping on my car, to some of the most tragic things that we've dealt with. We've had, we have murders in the city at times, and and we, there's been police shootings, and and we talk about what happens on the national level. It almost instigates, at the local level. And so, but at the end of the day, you're absolutely right, Bill. It's, that's where the rubber hits the road. You are there,
The scrutiny's higher potentially, in a way. Of course,
right.
On election day, everyone's on a fairly level playing field, if you will, in a certain sense anyway. But on the day-to-day basis, it's a lot of work to be mayor, that's for sure.
And there's a lot, there's a lot of responsibility, but, there's also that expectation, and rightfully so. I always say we're a community of 72,000. We're big enough to be called a city, but small enough that everybody wants you at everything, expects you to be there, and rightfully so, and because there is that responsibility that comes with the job.
Let's speak to some specific economic development issues. I didn't want to spend too much time on the Paw Sox issue.
Okay.
I know it's come and gone, but just addressing that now, I guess in the post Paw Sox era, what are your priorities? Obviously, Hasbro, there's been rumors that they're going to relocate, whether it's within the state or outside the state, whatever that may be. But where are your priorities now? Because clearly it was on the Paw Sox for at least a good portion last year.
Bill, there's a lot of priorities, right? And it's trying to balance through them, right? The Paw Sox seemed like it was a major priority. Don't get me wrong. It was about economic development, and the ancillary development was going to come with that. Having said that, that one became so important to everybody and so focused because of all the media hype. They were a tradition here on Island, right? There was the political perspectives that were coming into that. So it was more of a high profile, as a high priority. It was a priority to us. So, we have a couple of things that we need to deal with in the city. We have, we know that they're going to be gone in 2020. Their last season they're playing, they're going to be in Worcester, as a reality check. It hurts emotionally. It hurts the fabric of the city, but everybody in the community did, from our legislatures to our council to the mayor did the best we could to try to make it happen, and it didn't happen. So now we have to move on. So we have to fill that void in that area of McCoy Stadium. What does that become? We're working with the state. RFP, or request for proposal, will be going out to get other uses to see what venue may fit there, or it may mean a total knockdown and we build something else on that. So that's where we are with McCoy. The bigger challenge is, and we'll talk about priorities in a second, but the bigger challenge is that loss that we had from that ancillary development and that critical mass that would have generated in a new ballpark in our downtown. And that's what our downtown needs is, that critical mass. We've got some great folks, like we were talking about the space here. We have our old mill buildings, but, Pawtucket lacks that critical mass. We can't support enough of the restaurants. We have some great small restaurants, but we don't create that entertainment aspect, if you will, right? That destination. And that's what we're trying to do with that. So that's a big focus. Another focus is, the Apex property on economic development. It's privately owned. What becomes of that now, right? It's been, almost vacant for years, right? We all understand that that's a big attraction. It's a gateway project for us, property. What is that? And we're trying to work with the property owner. Last year or so has been really challenging, as you said. But the Memorial Hospital, we have the city and from myself to the council and other members had no control over the closure of that. We did everything we could to fight for keeping it open first. Then it was a fight to try to get conditions to put on it as part of the closure and what the community needs were. Not just us, it was community that were out there, the residents. That clearly, without this hospital, there is clearly an impact on the system statewide. We've all seen the stories. We've heard the horror stories. There's backlogs in the hospitals, in the emergency rooms. So one of the big main focuses for us this year is to work and get the state on board and create whether you call it a mini hospital, mini hospital is one of the terminologies. They call them a treat and transport, but what it is really an emergency room, right, that our residents can be served. It might not have 100 beds. It has a few beds, but we're trying to work on that, and it's very difficult because the state law prohibits certain things, right? It allows the large, big hospitals, right, that are not successful, or the small ones, right, that aren't successful because of number. And so you have to find a way. But at the end of the day, it's providing emergency services, a level up, if you will, I say an urgent care on steroids, if you will.
Yep.
Other communities are doing them. They call them mini hospitals. So there's models out there. I think we as a state and as a community need to take a look at that. And the Department of Health is working. They've hired a consultant, Jonathan Snow, as JSI, to take a look at. And that was one of the conditions that was put on the reverse CON at our request, to take a look at what the needs are. Because it's all about data, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, it's about money, and these big organizations at times, look at it, the bottom line. Care New England, they work hard. I mean, there are people that are up there working, but they have a model, and they're trying to, sell or partner with partners out of Massachusetts, a sell-off. So there's a bottom line that matters, and it's not necessarily the community or the people at times. And, we've had multiple meetings, and we raised those issues. And again, everybody thinks at a mayoral level that we have that control. It's really a state control. So, we're trying to partner with, and people just say, why don't you take the gloves off, Mayor, and punch them in the head, And you need to build those relationships and keep those relationships. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So, I think that, the reuse of McCoy is important. It's more of a, emotional tie. And I think something's going to happen there. Apex we've talked about, because Apex with our Slater Mill right there in the National Park, that will give us an opportunity, for development. We've got our commuter rail coming in, and that's really a big project, which is in our downtown. And we see the spinoff happening. So we're working with developers. I just was with an organization today, and we're trying to partner in them, because that's what we know the next step of, Pawtucket's history will be, and bringing new people in,
right.
Providing affordable live space and workspace like we talk about.
Yep.
So those are priorities, but the Memorial Hospital is a big one. And then it becomes, how do you move forward off of those, right? Because those are the day-to-day challenges. That's the stuff that takes, all day and all our time, sucks up all in the air in the room. And it's important, don't get me wrong. And so it's hard to, how do you move forward, right? We have challenges. I've been there 8 years now, and we've just finally been able to invest in our IT systems, in our financial systems. We're going through that change. We've started reinvesting in our schools, right? We have a major problem that was identified, 8 years ago or so. It's trying to find that dollars and invest. We've invested in 2 new schools that have been renovated. We're taking advantage of the governor's, reimbursement and the state's reimbursement, and we're focusing on that. So, but again, everybody thinks the money's there to grab. We still need to pay for it, right? It's how do you balance trying to keep the taxes at a reasonable rate so people can afford to live in their homes and not be priced out and do those things. And another big challenge is really overall our infrastructure. Like I said, we're dealing with the schools. We've done analysis. We've dealt with our roads. We've done an analysis. We know all the bad roads. We've paved in the last 5 years over 50% of our roads. And again, it's borrowing, investing, you're trying to do within the tax base that you have. And, we're an urban district and we have our challenges. And we also have some of our old, like our fire stations that, we've been Band-Aiding for 20 years. So we're trying to do those things and reinvest, but it really is the quality of life things. And it's making sure that people feel safe in their environment. They have the right education. We have a great superintendent and a school committee where, you see this test scores that came out, why they're dismal at best and they're disappointing. It's a refocus, and we as a state need to do that. And I think a lot of the challenge is, we have 39 cities and towns and great leadership in most of the communities. But we need to understand that we should be sharing a lot of things. Everybody gets concerned about talking about consolidation. We consolidated a few years ago internally with the schools, and we're sharing IT directors. We're sharing human resource folks. We did what private business had to do. Not probably enough or fast enough, but those are the things we need to do. So it's really balancing, and then how do you move the city forward? And then the other piece that's really important is the community aspect of it, because, as I see it, and this is really challenging, is with social media. Folks are out there, and, people can say anything they want or, and do anything they want. And it disengages a lot of folks, right? It's a lot of negative. It's not really positive. So we're doing some, analysis. We're bringing some folks in, some consultants in to help us teach how do we reach our constituency better? How do we engage them more? Right, so they feel that they are, because they're important, right? I get elected every 2 years. They matter. They really do, but they don't feel that they matter only at election time.
Right.
So,
Very
those are the
interesting.
type of things. What do you do, right? There's no right answer and there's no wrong answer.
Right.
But it's how do you do those things, Bill?
Yeah, and they'll create that dialogue that's irrespective of politics. It's just that pride for. Pawtucket is such a beautiful topography. You've got the river, and it's this wedge between the Northwest Rhode Island and Providence, and you have a distinct identity, and it's just got so much history there that I think there is inherent civic pride that you saw that with the Paw Sox issue. But yeah, I agree. If you could communicate that on a regular basis, I think you'd be surprised.
We do the newsletters, right? We do the social media, right? But not everybody gets it. So when I'm out, I go out at least 6 times. Sometimes I'll do it 12. This year, I think we're doing it 6, so I don't want to lie to you. We hit each neighborhood We have 6 districts in our community, in our city rather. I'm sorry, and we do a mayor's night out in each one. Last year, I think we did one. We do at least one a year. So I'm out there 6 times. The office is always open, but people don't. As much as you say it, there's that. Yeah, sure, mayor, right? You know what I mean? And it is hard this time, but it's really engaging people from the community. And there are a lot of good things. We're investing in our parks, and again, we're renovating our Payne Park in the Woodlawn section. We're doing a splash park, right? We're upgrading a lot of our facilities. So we're reinvesting in that. But there's still that apathy in a lot of ways that there's that expectation, and they're investing, right? They expect to have those things. But how do you engage them more? And I think, though, as you point out, there's that love for the city. There's so many people that connect to our city. We need our opportunity, and we're doing everything we can to fight for it. But the commuter rail stop that'll happen in late 2020, early 2021, that is going to be, I say, one of the game changers. That's a big impact, even ways that we don't know or understand. We've got vacant mill properties over there, underutilized mills in that area. That commuter rail alone is going to make us, to your point, is even connecting more to the Boston market because we're less expensive here, even to the Providence market. I was driving over here on my way here, Bill, and it's funny, I take it for granted. I'm going, all right, I'm already heading back to Pawtucket, right? Because the traffic's already backing up, right?
Yeah.
So that transit, the governor, to one of her better appointments, she has Director Alvidi there. She's got some good appointments, and we don't always see eye to eye, but, he's really focused in on infrastructure, right? Roads and bridges, right? Because it's been failing the system. But I'm really excited about her appointment of former mayor of Warwick, Scott Avedisian.
Yes.
And to RIPTA. That's important. Like, as we sit there and we work with RIPTA and we're working with DOT on our transit-oriented development, there's an model that's important. There's a connection, and they get it. It's just trying to find the funds. It's not something that you can just turn on a switch and it happens overnight. It's all about how do you meet the pieces, make this match. And the Pawtucket TOD, Central Falls TOD, I've got a great relationship with our sister city or our brother city in Central Falls. And, we understand that this commuter rail stop is going to help economically make them a lot more viable as well as us. So you have a benefit in the Northern Ireland, 2 communities that are going to benefit from it. So we see that as an opportunity. But you have, and again, if you've got more questions, I'm going to keep talking. But you've got your basic. You have your zoning issues, right? You have your code issues, right? There's still struggles, right? It's always about best practices and trying to put them in, and the game changes, and with the technology, right? I'm just picking up my iPhone and I'm just learning one app, and it's already outdated by the time I understand it, right? So we face with those challenges, and government is its own, and I mean this respectfully, it's its own beast in a way, and it's difficult at times. And you mentioned the Paw Sox. That's a great example. Is something that was so right for Pawtucket and so right for the state of Rhode Island that there was so many other factors that took over, and then. There was negative comments, misinformation out there, and again, the way it went. I mean, we're not going to change that. But I didn't mention, and as I clicked on that, is Hasbro is another one, right? Hasbro is a private business, right, that's been in Pawtucket for years, and centuries, and they were born here, right? They're part of our fabric, just like the Slater Mill is part of our fabric. As a company, and I understand that coming from the private sector, they have every right to determine where they want to be and what their next move should be, right? But what we're trying to do is bring attention from the state delegation down, the governor and the speaker and the Senate president, and engage in, instead of trying to relocate them, let's try to work with them to build what they need around and keep them where they are, whether at that site or another site. I think that we could do that, right? It's easy sometimes to supplant. And but again, at the end of the day, they're going to do what's right for their company, and they should. But I'm trying to get them to realize, and we've had multiple conversations, and they're great people. I want to be their biggest advocate that, they did everything they could and they stay, right? But if they can't, at least give us that opportunity. And so, with the Paw Sox leaving, there's that Memorial Hospital. It looks as though we're on this downswing, and we're really not. We've got so many of our small businesses that are successful. We're talking about the Hope Artiste, and they're putting in, we've got that wonderful workspace, and there's going to be 140 units of live work there. And so we've got these exciting communities. There's a lot of development happening in our old mill buildings because that's what excites people now. We're investing in that. And this commuter rail and the intermodal connection with the Ripter is going to be, it's going to be a hub. It's going to be exciting. And, we just got to keep finding our way through. And again, each community is unique, and, Providence is a capital city, so everybody wants to be, around the capital city. And Pawtucket is a city with great people, great bones. We've seen the change, in the years that, previous years, but we're still a bedroom community in a lot of ways. We have, people have their roots there, people who've owned their houses for years and care about our community and are involved in our community. And you try to balance the change that we need to make sure that our city continues to be successful without overplaying it and losing your identity.
Right. I mean, you're talking about a place that was so far ahead of the curve at one point in time, in terms of the Industrial Revolution. I mean, this is like, basic American history, but here you are again, what seems like could be, like you say, a downswing, but in reality, you may just be shedding some outdated business models and practices. I mean, your new small mini hospital, as you say, maybe that's got telemedicine and some of the practices
Absolutely.
of the future, and now you're all of a sudden you're a leader.
Right, and that's the crux, all right. But it all comes down to, and I hate to sound cynical, but it's all about the dollars, right?
Yep.
And as we're trying to bring new business in, and there's only so much that the community can do, right? I cannot put an overburden on our taxpayers to invest in, or overtax them so we can invest in some things, even though we need that. You can't do that. So it's that balance of getting it. So you're absolutely right. We're in the process of reinventing ourselves. We've brought on a commerce director, Jean Boyle, who is excellent at what she does. But the last year or so was spent on the Paw Sox, right? So all
Right.
our energies were in that because we understood. Some people got frustrated and said, you put all your energy in that and you let other things go. We were out there working hard, right? The Paw Sox got the attention because it was going to bring us that critical mass in our downtown as you look at studies. So, she's great at what she does, and we're meeting with business folks. We're bringing new business in. We're seeing a lot of development right now. There's a residential model building, and, and then there's going to be a lot of opportunity with the commuter rail. So you balance that, because what you don't want to do is, make it where it's not affordable for folks like you and I. You know what I mean? There's got to be that affordability. Sure, we're going to have a little bit of a higher end, right? And you're going to bring that up, and it raises the bar a little bit. You just don't want to go where you're outpricing it. And folks like us, you think about it. You mentioned to me, not to share, but your wife, being over at RISD, right?
Yep.
You want to be able to fit that model. You want to have that flexibility, right? And you want to have that affordability. So, Jeannie and the planning department, they're going to be very good at what they do. And they'll balance that, but we do need a lot of the support from the state. We do. There's no doubt. People call it subsidy. It's not. We really need the support, as they've done in Providence. We always say there's a metropolitan area over here as well. So and they are committed.
Well, that's interesting. On the day of the Worcester press conference, the infamous Worcester press conference, announcing that the Red Sox AAA affiliate was going there, I happened to be on the highway, and for whatever reason, I just went and drove out to the western hills of Cranston and just parked my car there, kind of overlooking Garden City, and just sat there and listened to that and thought about, that's your state right there. The division of power and influence has gotten out of control, where, you guys in your community have, you don't have the same leverage that Providence does for some reason. And that's just apparent to me on the outside looking in. Good on you for fighting for it. You'll get there.
And it's hard. And it's not, and then people get frustrated and people get burnt out, but it's my job. That's what I was elected to do. And we want to protect, not only what we have, but we want to see where Pawtucket's going to be in the future.
Yeah, I have a good feeling about it. I know that the artist and music community has been super hungry on Pawtucket News Cafe right down there. That's been a driver in terms of a night scene for a while, of bringing positive people together. It seems like, the community, it may be not moving in one clear direction right now, but there's a lot of energy in different arenas beneath the surface, right?
And you're absolutely right. I mean, you think about the artist community and the music community, right? And we always say arts community, right? But the music is part of it, and it's an important part of it. Is they are, I said it's like they've built the foundation. They are truly, there's a great group out there, and they've helped establish us as an identity, right? A place to be, right? And we know that's important. And we have an arts and cultural director. We're refocusing. We have our Pawtucket Arts Festival, engaging. But what we need to do is we need to get out of the structure or the same process. We're looking at potentially next year, not this season, but putting on another full-time person, for focusing in on the arts, and music and entertainment. That's important to us, right? We have that fabric. I always say it's like building a house. We've got these solid folks there that care about our community, excited about our community, right? How do we build on that, right? And we recognize and appreciate, because they were the first ones in, right? They committed to our city, and they've helped change our community, right? We wouldn't be having a commuter rail stop potentially if we didn't have the bodies or the need, right? And so you're absolutely right. That's an important part.
Living in New York, I'd see that, the progression of the train, and you'd always be that fine line between gentrification and people living out of necessity on the artist side of things because they genuinely need the building for the work they're doing. It seems like Pawtucket's right at that point now where it's not quite gentrifying. You haven't gotten to the point where you feel like, oh man, all these people are moving in from Boston and they're taking over the city.
No, you haven't. And one of the things that I think and the governor has capitalized on, and we see in our communities, is we do have a very hardworking workforce. Skill sets are there. And so what the challenge is a lot of the skill set was the old manufacturing world, and now this is an advanced manufacturing world. So what tools can we provide? The education, right? The technology increases. It's important, and I think that's part of it as well. But you're talking about that. You want to raise everybody up just a little bit, right? But if you go too far and you get to the gentrification, you're absolutely right. We're going to be in trouble, right? Nobody feels that way, right? But people are concerned, and then there are some on one side that'll say you're not doing enough, and others that are saying you're doing too much. And how do you balance that, right? How do you learn from all these communities that have become successful, in a lot of ways push their folks out? How do you gain their success without losing your identity and pushing those people out? And that's why, we talk about having a commerce director, having a good planning. The city council is very good at that. They're like us. They're on the streets as well. They're in their neighborhoods. They're on the ground, and they hear these things. So it's a good balance.
Last question.
Absolutely.
Disc golf. I know it's something that I learned about when I was in high school. I had a gym teacher who thought it was a great thing, so he taught us. It gave everyone discs to go out and play. But then I actually kind of rediscovered it this year. A buddy of mine got hooked and started getting very, very serious about it, traveling around New England. So I Googled and found that there was one. Slater Park. But then I found this story that there was controversy surrounding it. Wow.
Yeah. So give you a little bit, right? Now, I don't know how much time we have.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
So we have the disc golf out there. It's a great opportunity. As you could tell, I need to do a little more exercise. But again, out there, I've been out there a few times. It is fun. It was something that, I didn't understand. And we had the recreation director and the DPW director at the time come to us with this idea of doing the disc golf. It was an inexpensive way to bring activity into, the underutilized areas of Slater Park. And so it was a great idea. We went out. Most people were in favor of it. And then when we put in was an 8, I think we made it a 36 hole, but it was configuration of the 18 hole, the way they do it, the different pads that you throw from, right? So it was 18 of the baskets, if you will. And so what happened is there was some of the neighbors and the residents in the area who felt threatened that these people were coming into my neighborhood and felt concerned about it, right? It was close to their property. And so we tried to balance through, the politics of it. We had the district councilor who does a great job advocating for his folks and some of the residents that were concerned. We try to get them through that fear of, this is not like something that people are going to be out partying, drinking, right? It's a great activity, and it was new to us. And so what we ended up doing is compromising, and we broke them down to, instead of it being, again, it was 18 tees, holes, if you will, or the baskets. They broke it down to 9, and then depending where you throw it from the pad, you get to use it as an 18 hole. And so there was a lot of compromise. We pulled them away from the neighborhood. People felt, we thought that we had done a good job in communicating, letting people know, but there was a swell, and there were a few, and the residents that lived there, and I respected that, and the district councilor. And again, there was political agendas as well, but there was legitimacy to their concern, right? So I don't want to, and so what we did was we broke it down, we turned it into an 18 hole, and it's very successful. We went, and maybe we go back there someday as we talk about that. I think that people got spooked, if you will. Maybe we went too fast, like to say 36, like it was something. It was no. Instead of realizing this was a new concept, and let's look at phasing it in. We were hearing from our recreation director and DPW guys and gals that how important this was, and we were that model, and it was going to bring in that activity because we've got a lot of open space in there. We want people to enjoy it. We want the residents to enjoy it, but it's everybody's right to enjoy that open space. And again, so maybe we went so far to bring in all these holes, and it spooked everybody out. So we downsized it. It's been very successful. I don't want to say that there've been no concerns because I haven't heard any. We will work through the political. Again, it got blown up, And so right now it's very successful. I know we have hundreds of people that are visiting there. They're treating it respectfully. They're taking care of it. And they walk the paths out there. So it's a great way, to enjoy themselves. And the conflict that I think people thought would be there, that concern has been alleviated because we've had a great opportunity, a great experience with it.
Disc golf diplomacy.
So
Yeah. That's all the time we have for this episode, but I'll be back with a brand new episode on Tuesday. Until then, I'm Bill Bartholomew. We'll talk soon. Discover the dozens of conversations I've had on the Bartholomewtown Podcast with Rhode Island politicians, media members, artists, and beyond at bartholomewtown.com, ripodcast.com, or on Apple Podcasts.